And now let's update our glue constraint breaking thing here based on that force and mass thing I just mentioned, where we have the inner part of the metaball and the outer part of the metaball. So let's sim a few frames to get some cache back. I want to have the at least the sim on the frame where the metaball becomes active available to us. Great. I'm going to disable the sim now. And here we go. So we've been bringing in the metaball to say, okay, we have a whole bunch of stuff that's literally inside of the metaball. But of course, when we have the pieces coming in, we don't even really necessarily need that. We have the force already. On frame 3, we have a force. And the force is, big where it's in the middle of the metaball and everything else. So we implicitly know where the metaball's effect is just based on that. So I'm just going to wholesale get rid of this. We don't need any of this get metaball activate stuff anymore. Instead, let's do the force equals mass times acceleration thing I was saying, where these pieces will have some kind of acceleration, some kind of impulse, based on how much force they're receiving and how much mass they have. A big piece should not be moving as far as a small piece that's receiving the same force on it. So I'm going to say the mass, let's grab that from, in the same way we grab the position of the simulated pieces, let's grab the mass from that same simulated piece. And furthermore, let's grab the force from the simulated piece. So there we go. So now we have that. So now here, this is the constraints themselves now. It's that stream. We now have the force, which again is a vector, and we also have the mass. Great. Now these are the masses and forces that are actually on the individual points themselves. These are the points, they're the pieces, of course. We're going to be making these decisions based on those, the acceleration on the constraint itself. So let's promote that mass and force from the piece points to the constraint prims. So that is the mass and the force. Cool. So now we actually have the average. For every 2 points, the thing in the middle, the actual prim connecting them, will have the average of the attribute in question. So to actually determine then whether the bond should break or not, we need to write our little rules here. We're going to say, if you're not broken already, that's something we could have done before too. If you're not broken already, then let's make an attribute called Excel. And Excel will be, we have this force. Find me the length of that vector. The length of it will essentially be the power of it, the magnitude. And then divide that by the mass. So we should have, just as a test here, we'll say, well, we actually have it written into this fxl, so let's just look at that. I'm going to bring up a geometry spreadsheet over here. I'm going to hide all the stuff. Let's just look at Excel. There we go. And we can see, in the cases of, where we have a force, we have some high Excel amount. And again, that's more or less going to be where the metaball is. And we'll be able to gauge, based on that Excel, we'll be able to say you belong in the high intensity, the high activation central area, or you're like, well, you got hit, but maybe not so hard. So we don't actually need to store this as an attribute that we're going to use later. So I'm going to just make it a regular float. So we're going to say, hey, Excel, are you greater than some super high value that we'll call like max Excel thresh? If you are, then you've made the cut and you belong in the group high activate. And that'll be the group that we say we will decimate all of the constraints on. If if you don't quite make that cut, we can say, well, did you at least make like a lower cut where we're going to say, well, you received some amount of acceleration. You will go to a different processing area where we will just remove the weak outside bonds. So we'll say group low activate equals 1. Cool. Oops, hit the mic there. Okay, so apparently we messed something up. It's mad at me. Probably because these, the very least, these things don't exist yet. We'll need to raise this to some number to make our ultimate threshold and our minimum threshold. So let's see what we got here. Whoops, we've got one little thing there too many. I'll call this like calc breaks. So let's see. If we middle click, we have, we have some things that are high activate and some things that are low activate. So it looks like it's working. They should be mutually exclusive though. Let's see. I'm going to say, let's find out what does high look like. And as usual, we'll isolate it this way. So that's what high looks like. That's the stuff towards the center. This should be the stuff further out. And it is. Cool. So that looks pretty good. The only thing is we don't want the high stuff to be so much. I just wanted like a hot kind of core. So let's like double-ish. Or maybe double it even again. That looks more what I want. We don't want like the whole thing to get these super atomized breaks. We want most of it to fall under this, where it's just getting the big, the outside ones get taken off here, but for these ones, these will be destroyed completely. So that looks okay. We could even, tweak a little bit if you wanted. As usual, you can just like change the stuff around here and watch it change there. Cool. So we've got our low and high activations. Those are the ones we're going to want to copy over, not just activate. So I'll just say star activate. And before we forget, let's actually also delete star activate. And as far as this broken stuff goes, we'll just check for the group membership down here. We'll say if, and you remember, if this will be set to 1 if the primitive is in this group. So we can just say if group low activate. We don't have to like even test to say equals 1 because it's already, the attribute itself will be 1 and 1 is the same as being true. So if group low activate and you are one of those constraints that's the weaker ones, aka the glue outside ones, then, and only then you're broken. So don't break the inside ones. However, if you are in that ultra group, the group high activate, then yeah, you'll also go into group broken. Cool. So that's how we'll break them. That should do it. And yeah, that should be fine. Now every time we make a change like this, we may need to fiddle with the actual force that we're applying. But let's just see what we get from this first. I'm going to go back into this thing here, that thing there. Somehow this keeps getting turned on. And let's see what that gets us.